So how would you make a game that goes on forever? A game that constantly evolves, changes, and still stays interesting. But more importantly, how do you make the story to follow alongside that? A story that has just a beginning, an opening wide enough to keep the doors open for all of these mental events coming, a middle point you can coast out endlessly, and an ending that will always be teased, but will never really come. So live service games are a weird beast. They're games that are designed to live and be played forever. Or at least until people stop buying the microtransactions and the servers get too expensive. But because they need to get people hooked on these games, you can't just make an addictive primary gameplay loop to keep them hooked on battle passes. For some reason they also try and make a storyline for this big mess of characters that they've got going. Fortnite is the best example of this. I made a fairly awful video about Fortnite's messy and horrendous lore, which is probably completely outdated and irrelevant at this point. But to make a long story short, there's a few all-powerful entities that are forcing the loop, which is just a game of Fortnite. They try and justify all these pop culture crossovers in the lore by saying the loop wipes everyone's memory and removes their ability to speak, which basically destroys their whole personality. Then they try and make celebrity crossovers like The Rock into important canonical characters. Then for some reason he just appears out of nowhere, probably because they couldn't afford him for long enough. Then out of nowhere the story is just reset. This happens all the time. Everything gets a little bit too complicated. They just nuke the whole thing and make a new island. It's not really surprising when you have to pivot from Doctor Doom vs Iron Man to Ice Spice and Juice WRLD the next day. So, Rainbow Six Siege can't be that complicated, can it? It's just a tactical shooter about an elite special forces and terrorism unit with a massive bunch of characters to facilitate its gadget-based gameplay, and that's basically how the lore all starts out. In the offline mode, it's all about this elite team Rainbow against a white mask group. No reason why the multiplayer matches are happening where it's Rainbow vs Rainbow, but you can quite easily say it's just training or something. But eventually, Siege got really big with esports, and for some reason they tried to factor that in to the game's story. So, Rainbow beats the White Masks in a big in-game event, which was also served as the end of all the game's offline modes. So now the only way to play the game is online, Rainbow vs Rainbow. And for some reason they tried to justify this by making Rainbow into a world famous airsoft team, just plays among themselves, using expensive secretive military tech in front of crowds of thousands. Recently they've tried to reverse this airsoft decision by introducing Deimos, who goes and says, yeah, Rainbow was cooler when they were killing terrorists, and then shoots the guy who made them do airsoft instead. But now he's a playable character, so basically he kills the airsoft guy, because airsoft's for nerds, and then joins the airsoft team. If that doesn't show how much this game's a mess, I don't know what does. Everything I found out about this game's lore comes from this video, so if you want to know all of the actual stuff, look there. Marvel Rivals already had a bad start lore-wise, considering it's based on all the Marvel comics, which are consistently a mess. With comics, there's always a revolving door of writers, which means there's constant retcons, and always the chance of random character additions or removals. There's also the need to sell enough editions week on week to keep the series actually going, which gives us the pre-internet version of clickbait. But Marvel Rivals went the best way it could and tries to do its own thing. And would you believe it, like just about everything else in pop culture, it's about the bloody multiverse. Basically, Doctor Doom and Doctor Doom from the 2099 universe, which is just a universe in the future, have a slight disagreement, which somehow results in a bunch of universes getting smashed together, which gives excuse for all the villains and heroes to have a go at each other in completely random teams. They even tried to make these scenarios for each stage to flash up at the bottom for each match. Like the map of Wakanda just mentions random stuff with vibranium that's going on to try and justify capturing a point. I think the Fantastic Four map has something to do with the whole team not knowing whether to kill all the vampires in New York or not, and pushing the payload means the vampires are saved, whereas defenders want to kill all the vampires. But other than that, because they're only in their first season, the lore hasn't become too much a mess yet. It's just fairly stupid and pointless right now. As always, I feel like I have to mention how much a mess COD is right now, but its stories are usually fairly tight. By the end of the campaign, everything's usually all finished up, wrapped up in a tight little bow, and the multiplayer is just random skirmishes between the two factions in the story that technically could have happened. But Warzone is where it's been an absolute mess story-wise. It starts off in 2020, tries to follow the story of the Modern Warfare reboot with Al-Assad and its toxic gap and everything. But because they want to keep the Warzone mode and its storyline going through all of the different COD games, it jumps back to 1984, because Cold War was the next COD. So they try and force Black Ops Cold War into this existing story. So now there's all of a sudden a few Percy stations lying around, the gas is Nova 6, and the numbers program is back, for absolutely no reason. Then to make it even better, everyone's favourite COD, Vanguard, comes out, and we go back another 40 years to 1944. And suddenly it's about whatever's going on with COD Vanguard, and fucking play it, so I don't care. Then Godzilla and King Kong turn up, and they destroy the island. Well, at least they beat Fortnite to the punch on that one. And this is just Warzone 1. With Modern Warfare 2 and 3 came new releases and series of Warzone with more story in the biggest quotation marks possible. But is there really any more point in me talking about this any longer? Did anyone even play Modern Warfare 2 or 3 except me? Overwatch has been going on for almost 10 years now, and has since regressed into Overwatch 2. So you'd think, after going on for this long, it might have at least found its feet story-wise. But it's somehow still a mess. The story started out as just Overwatch against some random robots, but for some reason they got a bit far in, and they decided to overcomplicate it. They wanted to move onto this dark story about the fall of Overwatch. So now it's not just Overwatch versus an evil robot army, it's now about the internal conflicts of Overwatch. The whole team fighting against themselves. Now they've got an edgy counterpart team called Talon, with members like Sigma, Moira and Reaper. Of course, you can play as these lot in the standard online matches, so that characters from Talon and Overwatch are always on the same team when we see them. So it sounds similar to the whole Siege lore issue, where they just chuck in random characters and don't bother working out how the lore fits in with them. But they're somehow even worse than Overwatch, because literally none of this story or greater context is in the game at all. The best you're going to get in Overwatch is the description of a skin. Not even a cutscene at the beginning or ending of a season. Even Fortnite gives you that much. The way people have pieced all of this together through online trailers and marketing material. I'm guessing that PvE mode that was promised to us in Overwatch 2 was supposed to open up everything and explain a lot of the story, but we all know what happened there. That's just a few of the live service games that I've played and they have absolutely awful lore. I know that most of these games just really didn't try that hard because they were all focused on selling battle passes and microtransactions instead. But some of these are still just embarrassing. Let me know if there's any other games with awful stories that I should have a look at. So the answer to our question, how do you make a game that goes on forever? Please fucking don't. There's already enough of them.